Good evening. It is really wonderful that we are gathered for this one purpose, and I want you to feel, right from the beginning, that there is no embarrassment in this room, no shame, and certainly no moral verdict hanging over your head. We are not here to condemn or congratulate. We are here to look at something every one of us has felt, and to look at it together, you see, so that the fear of looking dissolves. Now then, we must never use the words right and wrong about our inner life. Never, never, never. There are states and stages of consciousness, and every experience we meet belongs to a stage. In other words, the thing itself is not a character defect. It is a sign that tells us where we are standing. Take this word that has frightened so many: anxiety. Let us not call it bad. Let us call it a bell. When you hear it within, it is not announcing your failure. It is announcing that consciousness has slipped from the felt presence into the mind weather, into those winds and clouds of thought and memory and prediction that have no substance of their own. Watch out. If you fight the bell, you will miss the message. If you call it sin, you will hide from the very light that would reveal the way home. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is the signal that says you have wandered from the quiet center into the changing sky. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. Presence as living consciousness, not as a theory, not as a mere technique. We honor every level that offers human comfort, and we have compassion for all the ways people try to cope. But I am not addressing you psychologically. I am addressing you spiritually, where the center is God, Spirit, the I that I am, the one self that is peace itself. On that ground there is no blame, there is acknowledgement. I know where I am, and I know where I am not yet. And that honesty is our doorway. You may say, but what do I do when the bell is deafening? We are not launching a long program. We are not setting out to remodel your past or to draw up a better future. We are learning a return. The way home is immediate and repeatable. It can be made in the very moment the mind is loud. You see, the mistake of the ages has been to think our way back to peace, to outline outcomes and bargain with the storm. No. Peace is not manufactured by thought. It is uncovered by contact. Our work, then, is to recognize the bell, to refuse to name ourselves as the storm, and to turn quietly, without words at first, back to the living presence that is already here. So tonight, do not be afraid of the ringing. Let it ring. Let it announce that you are being invited, not punished. We will learn to listen for the bell and to make the return again and again, until the very sound that once frightened you becomes the grace that guides you home. Now then, before we can make a true return, we must know to what we are returning and from what we have wandered. We are speaking of states and stages of consciousness, you see. Presence is not a mood, not even a fine thought about God. Presence is awareness before a single thought is formed, the quiet sense of being that is here right now as the I that knows it is. If you ask me where it is found, I will not send you to a mountaintop or a temple. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground, right where you are, as you are, without adornment. Presence is the fact that being is, that life is, that awareness is. It is prior to words, prior to plans. If you pause, even for a moment, and do not pick up a single description, there is a feltness of I am. That is presence. Now what then is this mind weather we have been discussing? It is the traffic of thought that passes through the sky of awareness, forecasting tomorrow's troubles, rehearsing speeches you will never give, arguing with people who are not in the room, defending a self-image that is only stitched together by memory. It is not evil. It is not to be condemned. It is weather, winds and clouds moving across consciousness with no substance of their own. At one stage, we are so fascinated by these clouds that we call them me, and at another stage, we begin to see that they are only passing. But we must not use the words right and wrong about this. There are states and stages of consciousness, and each stage has its sightlines. Why then does the alarm ring? Because identity has fused with a thought. The moment the mind says, "This picture is me, this story is my life, this forecast must be fulfilled," the body quite naturally tightens to protect its imagined self. Anxiety is not punishing you. It is protecting what you have unconsciously crowned as I. In other words, the bell is honest. It tells you, you have stopped resting as awareness and have started defending a concept. You may say, if presence is here, why do I not feel it? Because omnipresence is not the same as realized contact. God may be everywhere present as law and as love, but until there is contact, that omnipresence is only a statement to you, not a life. Do you see? This is not a judgment. It simply tells you the state you are in at that moment, the degree of availability you have allowed. It is not wrong to feel anxious. It is a faithful report that contact has been obscured by identification with the weather. So let us be very gentle and very exact. Do not fight the wind. Do not worship the cloud. Watch out that you do not turn against yourself in the moment the bell sounds. The alarm is mercy. It does not say, "You have failed." It says, "You have forgotten." And that simple recognition begins to lift the crown off the thought and return it to the I that I am. From there, the return becomes possible, not by force, not by argument, but by a quiet willingness to stand again on the holy ground that is already under your feet. Now then, having seen that the bell rings when identity fuses with a thought, let us correct the most natural, but most unfruitful reflex. The moment the bell sounds, most of us sit down with the mind and begin to bargain. We start to reason with fear, to list pros and cons, to outline better scenarios, to sketch rescue plans and secure conclusions, and all the while, we are still in the same room where anxiety was born. You see, we imagine that if we add one more thought, arrange one more argument, secure one more promise about tomorrow, peace will be restored. Watch out. That entire activity is the weather trying to dry the rain. It cannot be done. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. Just as we have said, there is no use going to God for things, because the moment you ask for things, you have turned God into a Santa Claus. So there is no use going to the mind for safety. The moment you ask the mind for safety, you have turned it into a savior, and it cannot deliver presence. What is the use of asking the mind for peace? What could the mind give you but more thoughts about peace? And thoughts about peace are not peace. In other words, you can rehearse 1,000 assurances, and the very need to rehearse them testifies that contact has not been made. Now, you may answer, but if I tell myself it will be all right, I feel better for a moment. Yes, for a moment, as a child quiets when given a toy that soon breaks. Reassurance seeking is a way of paying homage to the storm. It bows before the forecast and begs it to be kind. It keeps consciousness tethered to yesterday's memory and tomorrow's picture, and then wonders why the present is not available. Never, never, never Try to make fear disappear by arguing with it. You may rearrange the furniture, prettier words, brighter plans, but you are still in the same house, and the house was built by thought. Do not hear condemnation in this, please. We must never use the words right and wrong about thought. There are states and stages of consciousness, and in one stage, thought is a very necessary servant. You need it to balance a checkbook, to drive a car, to answer the door. But thought is a tool. It is not your identity, and it is not your access to God. The attempt to ascend to peace by climbing thoughts is like trying to reach the sun by piling up ladders. You will only grow weary and fall asleep in the scaffolding. So what then? We seek contact, not conclusions. Presence is regained by the simple return to the ground of being, by a shift from management to receptivity. We are not abolishing thought, we are dethroning it. We let it stand nearby until it is called for, and until then, we refuse to serve it as master. In a moment, we will see the first turn of that return, how to stop naming yourself as the storm and to stand as the witness, where the bell is heard, but no longer obeyed. Now then, let us make the first return. Not a philosophy, not a long program, but an immediate pivot that can be done in seconds and repeated over and over until it becomes as natural as breathing. You see, the bell rings, and the reflex has been to argue with the bell. We are going to do something simpler. We are going to change the name tag on the experience. Instead of, "I am anxious," let there be this: there is anxiety present. The difference seems small to the mind, but it is the door. In the one, identity is fused with the weather. In the other, identity stands as the sky in which the weather passes. Do not call it a failure. Call it a signal. Think of it as the indicator light on the dashboard of consciousness. The light is not the engine, and it is not the driver. It is a message. When the light comes on, you do not scold the car. You do not break the dashboard. You acknowledge a light is on, and you adjust your attention. In the same way, when the pressure, the flutter, the tightness announces itself, let the first movement be honest observation. There is a band of tension at the ribs. There is a quickness in the breath. There are thoughts forecasting. That is all. No verdict. No story. No outlining of outcomes. Now, for a few seconds, let us practice it together. Feel your feet where they meet the floor. Feel the point of contact with the chair. Notice the simple fact of breathing without trying to make it different. Locate the most vivid sensation, perhaps a stone in the stomach, a buzzing behind the eyes, a pull in the throat. Allow it to be exactly as it is, and give it only this much language. Sensation is present. If the mind rushes in with, "Yes, but if this keeps up, if tomorrow, if last time," let it shout, but do not hand it the microphone of identity. Let the voice talk. You remain the listener. The I that is aware is not the sentence it hears. This is not suppression. It is the refusal to lie. Suppression says nothing is happening. Honesty says something is moving in the field. And then it refuses to crown that movement as I. Never, never, never take the name of the storm as your own. If you are tempted to say, "I am anxious," pause and revise. Anxiety is appearing. If you catch yourself late, do not be ashamed. Correct gently. The correction takes 2 seconds. The bell rings. You step back into awareness. You keep the name of I for the one who is aware. Do this again and again through the day, not to make a feeling vanish, not to bargain with the weather, but to stand where you belong. You will find that even while the mind continues a little while with its forecasts, something in you has already come home. The body's sensations may quiver. Let them. The witness does not tremble. And from this simple witnessing, no story, no petition, no outline, the ground is prepared for the deeper shift. Silence, not as a clamp over the mouth of thought, but as receptivity to presence itself. We are not yet in that wordless prayer. We are only clearing the table so that when the feast is served, there is room. This is the first return. Make it briefly, make it often, and the bell that once sent you running will become the gentle call to remember who you are. Now then, with the name tag corrected and the storm no longer wearing your name, we can make the second return. We call it prayer, but you must hear me. Not prayer as words sent up to persuade a reluctant God. Not prayer as bargaining chips thrown into the wind. Prayer as receptivity, as inner communion, as the simple contact with presence that is already here. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. What is the use of asking God to take away a feeling? What would you tell omnipresence that omnipresence does not already know? The moment you ask for relief, you have outlined an outcome and turned God into a means. Never, never, never do that. Go to God only for God. If words must be used, let them be these, not as petition, but as a gentle opening. Father, reveal thyself. In other words, let awareness recognize awareness, right here, without condition. How is this done in the very moment of the bell? Very simply and very briefly. For 30 seconds, 60 if grace allows, stop all negotiations. Do not finish a single argument. Let the unfinished sentence fall to the floor. Allow the breath to be exactly as it is. Do not lengthen it. Do not count it. Do not decorate it. Allow sensation to be exactly as it is. The band at the ribs, the flutter in the belly. Let them be. Allow the room, the hum of a vent, a car passing, a distant voice. Let them be. Allow the seeing of light and shadow. Do not label the objects. And, most of all, allow the witnessing that is here before the breath, before the room, before the sensation. Rest as that. Not a thinker thinking about resting, but the simple being that requires no thought to be. Do not call this a technique to silence anxiety. Call it a return to the place from which all weather can be met without panic. We are not trying to make the clouds vanish. We are turning to the sky in which they appear. The kingdom of God is within you. The contact, then, is within you. Presence is omnipresent, yes, but it is not of any avail to you merely as a statement. It becomes living the moment you cease petition and enter communion. In that communion, there is no demand, no measurement, no clock watching. There is only a quiet, wordless consent. Let what is holy be known as present. You may ask, and then what? Then nothing, and everything. When contact is touched, harmony appears as lawful fruit, not as a miracle to divine sense, only to ours. God is a law as well as love. Therefore, when you are no longer feeding fear with identity, the mind settles in its time because there is no longer a self to protect. The body follows the leadership of that peace beyond understanding. Breath unwinds. The nervous system takes its cue from the presence recognized. Do not yank at the fruit. Do not peek to see if it is ripening. Remain in contact. Let the seasons of mind and body move under the government of that inner stillness. Watch out now, in this second return, that you do not smuggle in a bargain beneath the silence. If you find the thought, "I'll do this so the feeling will go," smile gently and drop it. Return again to, "Father, reveal thyself," or dispense even with that and be still. No words, no outline, no promise extracted. Only contact, only receptivity, only the willingness to stand in the holy ground of I am, where the bell may ring, but the hand that reaches for it knows at last it is only a bell. From that knowing, the storm spends itself, and you remain. Now then, there is a third return, and this one, if you will let it, becomes the soft light that stays on even when clouds pass. I am speaking of gratitude and love, but you must hear me carefully. Not gratitude for a result, not love offered to secure a dividend, not an emotional high that burns out by supper time. I am not talking about gratitude that has an object. We must never confuse thanksgiving for a change in weather with the thanksgiving for the sky itself. There are states and stages of consciousness, and at one stage we are grateful for the check in the mail, for the call that went well, for the symptom that eased. That is not wrong, it is just early. In this third return, we learn gratitude for being, presence, grace, the very fact of awareness before a single condition improves. You see, there is no other way to open your soul to the flow of presence except through gratitude and love. Not the noisy kind, not the kind that has to shout hallelujah to feel convinced. Quiet acknowledgement is the key. A soft inner yes to what is holy and already here. In the hour of anxiety, the mind demands, "Give me certainty, show me a contract, prove I will be safe." Gratitude answers without argument, "I acknowledge what is already here. Being is. Awareness is. The witnessing is present." That acknowledgement is love without a demand. It does not reach for a promise. It rests in presence as its sufficiency. Let us make it practical. For 10 seconds, 20 if grace allows, say inwardly, without words if you can, "Thank you," without attaching it to a single reason. Feel the flavor of thank you with no object hung on it. Let it rest as a warmth in the chest, a softening at the brow, or nothing at all but a willingness. If the mind rushes in to label, "Thank you for the breath, for the chair, for the money," smile and let the labels drop. Be grateful for the capacity to witness, for the I that is aware, which requires no prop to be itself. This is love without a demand. This is thanksgiving to God, not as a supplier of guarantees. Watch out now. Do not secretly hire gratitude as a technique to force results. Never, never, never. The moment gratitude becomes a lever, it snaps shut, and you are back bargaining with the wind. Return instead to simple acknowledgement. As you abide there, you will notice something lawful, not miraculous to divine sense, only to ours. The narratives keep talking, yes, but your relationship to them changes. You do not wrestle, you regard. You do not combat, you companion. Fearful stories are met the way a mother meets a child's nightmare. Held, not argued. Presence, contacted through objectless gratitude, lends you that compassion. And from there, Action, when it is needed, will be simple and timely, without the fever of proving or the ache of securing. But we are not there yet in our outline. For this moment, let gratitude be your doorway. Not for outcomes, not for evidence, but for the unspectacular miracle that awareness is here, and you are not absent from it. Keep returning to that thank you without a reason, and you will find that even when the bell rings, it rings in a sanctuary. Watch out. This is the point at which many of us, having tasted a little quiet, immediately convert it into a tool to fix the noise. The ego, I use the word only as shorthand for that habit of self-protection, will quickly hire presence as a method to get rid of symptoms. I'll witness this feeling so it will stop. I'll do my 30 seconds of silence so the flutter will go. I'll say thank you without a reason so that a reason will show up. Do you see what has happened? Presence has been reduced to a transaction. You are still bargaining with the wind. You are still outlining. You have placed peace out in the future and made contact into an instrument to reach it. And in that very move, contact is missed again. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. Go to God for God. Go to presence for presence. Never, never, never lift your mind to the holy with a demand in your other hand. The moment you do, you turn God into a supplier, presence into a sedative, prayer into a lever. That is not wrong as a stage. Remember, we must never use the words right and wrong. There are states and stages of consciousness, but it cannot bring you home. What is added to you appears by law, in its season, after contact, not because you twisted the dial just right. How do you correct this, practically, when you catch yourself bargaining? You pause, and you are honest. Father, I came for a result. I lay that down. Reveal thyself. Then drop even those words, and be still. Let there be no clock in your heart. Do not look sidewise to see if the breath has changed, if the band at the ribs has softened. That looking, that checking, is the old employer trying to keep you on the payroll. Return to receptivity. Let your gratitude have no object, your love no demand. Presence is sufficient to itself, and your function in this holy moment is not to use it, but to yield to it. And yet, be very tender with yourself. You will forget. You will lose contact. You will wake in the night with the bell ringing and discover you were bargaining all over again. Do not be ashamed. Never be ashamed to acknowledge your stage. Each recognition is growth. Each return strengthens the capacity. Think of a musician who returns to the same scale day after day, not as a punishment, but as the way the fingers learn truth. The bell rings. You witness. You become receptive. You rest in objectless gratitude. 10 seconds, 20, many times a day. Not to notch a victory, not to tally results, but to abide. Beware also of spiritual pride and spiritual bookkeeping. Do not set up a success and failure chart for your practice. The moment you judge a contact by whether the symptom faded in 3 minutes or in 15, you are back to hiring God for wages. Presence is not a technique. Presence is presence. When contact is made, harmony unfolds as it must, sometimes as a quieting of the body, sometimes as a simple, timely phone call you are moved to make, sometimes as the strength to sit still without collapsing into dread. All of it is added. None of it is the wage for your ritual. Now then, with this refinement in place, with the bargain laid down and the contact honored for itself, We can allow the bell to do more than summon us to silence. We can let it teach. In the light of presence, without judgment, anxiety will show you the belief image it has been guarding, the little idol you crowned as I. And seeing that, not to scold but to understand, is the beginning of release. We will look at that together. Now then, let us allow the bell to speak. We must never use the words right and wrong about this next part. There are states and stages of consciousness, and anxiety, when it arises, is often the faithful guardian of a picture you have enthroned as I. You see, the moment an image of control, or of approval, or of safety, or of a particular identity is threatened, the alarm rings. Not to punish you, never, but to protect what you believe you must have to be. So we shift from fighting to listening. We ask not how to silence the bell, but what it is ringing about. What is the mind trying to secure? What future is it trying to own? What story must remain unchallenged for this image to feel safe? And, most daring of all, what would happen if you did not solve this right now? These are not accusations, they are keys. In other words, we turn from make it stop to show me what I am believing. And we ask from the ground of presence, not from the storm. How do we do this practically? Having made the first and second and third returns, witnessing, receptivity, objectless gratitude, hold the sensation in awareness as you would hold a child, near, warm, without argument. Then, inwardly, not as a demand but as a consent, say, show me what I am believing. Do not go hunting with analysis. Let revelation come. You may notice a sentence float up. If I am not in control, I will be harmed. Or, if they disapprove, I will lose love. Or, if this uncertainty remains, life is not safe. Sometimes it is an image, a ledger, a clock, a doorway that must not close. Watch it appear. Do not make it true and do not make it false. Let it show itself. Now watch out here, because the mind will try to seize the teaching and turn it into more weather. It will analyze, compare, build timelines. Never, never, never let inquiry become a courtroom. This is not prosecution, it is revelation. The point is not to win an argument with a belief. The point is to see the belief image you have been guarding as I. The seeing begins the release. The crown comes off. In that very moment, you may find a soft, almost imperceptible relaxation. The protector recognizes it is guarding a picture, not your life. What then? Often, without any fanfare, there is a quiet acknowledgement. Ah, I was trying to secure a future I do not own. Or, I was bargaining for approval I already am not lacking in presence. Do not rush to replace the image with a better one. Return to contact. Let gratitude without an object bathe what has been seen. If words arise, let them be simple. Father, reveal thyself here also. No outline, no demand. Only the willingness that what is true of presence be known where a picture once sat upon the throne. And you will discover a further grace. Once the image is seen, there may come a small, unspectacular clarity about movement. A phone call to make, a form to fill, a meal to eat, or perhaps no movement at all, except rest. We will look at this in our next step, because there are two kinds of movement: the simple, timely action that flows from presence, and the compulsive motion that keeps the image on life support. For now, let anxiety teach you what it has been protecting. Let it speak. let it show, and let the showing be enough to begin the loosening. Now then, since we have let the image show itself, we must learn to move from presence and not from panic. There are two kinds of movement, and we must never use the words right and wrong about them. There are states and stages of consciousness. In one state, movement is anxious motion, repetitive, urgent, exhausting, like pacing a small room and wearing out the rug. It is motion that promises relief but never arrives at completion. It circles, it seeks proof, it rehearses. In another state, movement is inspired action. Simple, timely, proportionate. It does not come with fanfare. It comes like a small click after stillness, one clear step, not 100 frantic plans. You see, anxious motion begins before contact. It starts with, "What if?" and ends with, "Not enough." It reaches for the phone and makes 6 calls to hear the same reassurance said in 6 voices. It opens 10 tabs and spirals down research that cannot possibly conclude. It doom scrolls. It refreshes an inbox. It rereads the same message and then reads it again, looking for a hidden threat. And afterward, you feel spent, not settled, tighter, not freer. Inspired action, by contrast, appears after the return, after the brief witnessing, after the wordless receptivity, after gratitude without an object has turned your face back to the sky. Then, often without drama, one step is given. Make one call. Send one note. Drink a glass of water. Take a 10-minute walk. Write the next line. Only the next line. There is no performance in it. There is proportion in it. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way. God is a law as well as love. And when consciousness is aligned through contact, the next step appears by law. You do not pry it out of the future. It shows itself where you are. The burden of forecasting falls away because you are no longer trying to live 3 tomorrows in one afternoon. You are given light enough for the next footfall. That is all that is needed, and that is all that is ever given. Watch out here. The mind will protest, but I must see the whole map. Never. Never. Never demand a contract from tomorrow. Presence is not a travel agency handing out itineraries. Presence is the life within you, guiding movement now. How do I recognize the difference, you ask? Anxious motion carries heat and haste. It insists, right now or else. And after its flurry, you are left charged, checking, second-guessing. Inspired action carries quiet. Even when it is quick, it is clean. There is no bargaining embedded in it. The body's tone changes, not a trance, not a heroic surge, a steadiness. The step is proportionate to the situation, not grandiose. If it is a phone call, it is one phone call, not a campaign. If it is to walk, you walk, and you return, not 5 miles to prove you are okay. If it is to write, you write the next sentence, not the whole book before supper. And sometimes, do not miss this, sometimes inspired action is no movement at all beyond abiding. The click is wait. The mind will call this laziness because it cannot stand unplanned space. But after contact, rest is not avoidance. It is obedience. The distinction is simple. Avoidance is a dodge that produces more noise. Rest is a consent that produces more clarity. Now then, to trust inspired action, you must relinquish the mind's demand for total certainty. This is the maturation of faith, not belief in particular outcomes, but inner confidence born of contact. You take the one step given, and you refuse to mortgage your peace to the next 10. Practice this. After your brief return, ask inwardly, not as a demand but as receptivity. Is there one simple next? If something clear and proportionate arises, do it without ceremony. If nothing arises, let nothing be your step and keep your gratitude without an object. In this way, movement comes under the government of presence, and the life that once ran on compulsion begins to walk, and sometimes to rest under a yoke that is easy and a burden that is light. Now then, let us speak of demonstration, not as a parade, but as proof enough for your own heart. Over these years, in my experience and in the lives I have watched closely, the body learns safety through contact. Do you hear that? Not through argument, not through speeches to yourself, but through repeated returns, brief and honest. At first, peace feels foreign, like an unfamiliar room you tiptoe into. Anxiety feels like home base. Then, as you come back, 30 seconds, 1 minute, many times a day, the roles begin to exchange places. Peace becomes the familiar chair. The bell still rings, yes, but it rings in a sanctuary and not in a factory. There is often a click, and I want you to recognize it when it comes, so that you do not miss it hunting fireworks. The outward circumstance has not changed. The email still waits. The appointment is still tomorrow. The body still hums a little. But the inner contraction lets go its fist. It is as if a hand unclenches around the ribcage and the breath does not get longer by force. It gets free by law. You are still aware of sensation, but you are not fed to it. That click is not a miracle to divine sense. It is the fruit of contact. God is a law as well as love. And the law is that when identity returns to presence, the protector is relieved of a burden it could never carry. Make this repeatable. Never wait for a big experience. Do not set a trap for angels. Take the small returns and take them often. Witness for a few seconds. Consent to wordless receptivity. Taste gratitude without an object. Over and over and over again. Do you see what is happening? You are training the nervous system where to look for leadership. In the early stage, the bell returns quickly and loudly, and you will think, I am getting nowhere. That is not true. You are building a path. In the middle stage, the bell still rings but less often, and you answer it sooner, with less theater. Eventually, do not make a timeline of this. Anxiety becomes a signal light you acknowledge and address by reflex. You witness, you receive, you give thanks without a reason, and you move, or you rest, under quiet government. Watch out that you do not start measuring. Never, never, never turn this into a stopwatch or a scoreboard. The body does not learn safety by being timed. It learns by being shown consistently where home is. If a click comes, good. If none comes, good. You have honored the contact. You have refused the bargain. The demonstration is cumulative. Like a musician returning to the same scale, your fingers of attention become sure. The instrument responds sooner. The song appears without strain. Now then, we must carry this out of theory and into the hours of a day, because pressure does not make appointments. It arrives at the sink, in the car, between sentences. So we will build a simple rule of life, not a heavy program, by which the return is practiced before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm, until presence is not visited, but lived. We will set that rule together next. Now then, Let us make this plain enough to practice before the dishes are dry. A simple rule of life. The return is practiced before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm. Not as a program to impress heaven, but as a rhythm of remembrance. Before the storm means the morning, before the body stands up to carry yesterday's stories. Before you look at a single screen, before you meet a single plan, sit or lie as you are and give 30 seconds, a minute if grace allows, to wordless receptivity. Do not review problems. Do not bargain for a peaceful day. Do not outline outcomes. Simply acknowledge presence. If a phrase helps open the door, let it be this, and then let it fall. Father, reveal thyself. Then be still. No words, no promises extracted. You see, we must never begin the day by kneeling to images. Begin by honoring the sky itself. This is not a charm. It is contact. During the storm, the bell rings. Now take the 3-step return in real time. First, witness. Not me, not mine, to the weather. The body may hum. Let it hum. The mind may argue. Let it talk. Do not wear its name tag. Second, wordless communion. 30 seconds of simple receptivity. No petition, no outline. Just the quiet consent that presence is here. Third, gratitude without an object. A soft thank you with no reason attached. 10 seconds is enough when it is faithful. Do this in the hallway, at the sink, at a red light. Keep it brief and honest. Watch out. Never hire the steps to force a result. Never, never. Never turn to presence as a sedative. Go to God for God, and let harmony be added by law, not manufactured by leverage. After the storm, do not relitigate the episode. Do not sit the mind down and try the case all over again. Offer simple thanks for the bell and for the return. If a belief image was shown, control, approval, certainty, note it gently. A single line on a page is enough. Today the bell guarded my picture of being in charge. Then close the book. There are states and stages of consciousness. Acknowledgement is growth. Shame is not. Hold to the absolutist simplicity of this rule. Never use presence to outline outcomes. Never demand certainty as the price of peace. Keep knocking at the door of your own consciousness, for the kingdom is within you. God is a law as well as love. Omnipresence is of no avail to you merely as a statement. It becomes availability through contact. And as you honor this before/during/after rhythm, you will find that needs are met, not by magical override, not by a supermarket god, but because contact reveals proportion, wisdom, and the next right step for your present stage. Sometimes the step is to call, sometimes to wait, sometimes to laugh and go make breakfast. Each arrives without fever. Over and over and over again, the bell rings and you answer from home. In time, do not make a timeline of this. The rule becomes your reflex, presence your standpoint, and peace no longer a visitor, but the quiet government under which you live.